Peace, family, and welcome to another episode of Sins of the Father. I'm your host, Ani I Am, and just tapping in with you guys, man. I wanted to share some things that I've been researching and bring y'all into kind of like some of the things that I'm going through. Actually going through some issues, and I looked up some things that may be relevant to what it is that I'm, experiencing in relationships, right? And I realize now that there are a lot of things that, which you've touched on, and which I'm sure, a lot of us know, are directly related to the relationships that we have and the relationships that we've had in the past. But I wanted to understand, what exactly are they? Like, what exactly are those things? What exactly are they called, and how do I identify them? How do I specifically recognize, one, the effect of something that may have happened at an earlier time? So I was actually looking at something, and it's called altered stress response systems. So just read it to you guys. Early adversity, such as abuse or neglect, can sensitize a person's stress response systems, making them overly reactive to perceived threats. This can lead to chronic anxiety, difficulty regulating their emotions, and which can cause conflict and instability in relationships. So I'm say that to say, in my relationship, I realized that I respond with a level of aggression sometimes, because I feel like a person may be threatening, disrespecting me, or I may feel like a person is always out to get me when they're not. I remember being in a relationship and a woman saying to me, why do you always feel like I'm against you? I never could understand it, because I would say, I don't necessarily feel like that consciously, but maybe subconsciously, now that I'm understanding it more, maybe I did feel that I couldn't trust the person, if that makes sense. Or there was a reason why I couldn't really fully trust the person. I didn't feel in my heart that I could do that. And maybe I didn't know it, even though I thought I was trusting them, but I wasn't. And that person was feeling my anxiety towards them, my distrust of them, That makes sense? So I'm thinking now, like, how many times, and I'm thinking about just my relationships throughout, from young, my teenage to young adulthood, having relationships that I thought were loving, or that I thought I knew was serious, put it that way. And how much of that damage did I cause by, unconsciously, did I cause by reacting in ways that weren't warranted? And how do I learn from that, right? Like, how do I fix that so that it doesn't continue to happen? So another thing I was reading, and I think it's important that we find solutions, for those type of things, and I looked up some. So I want to kind of maybe share some of them with you guys, because I think that it's important that you have both, right? You have the understanding of what's actually happening and what's being done. And at the same time, you work on solutions for those things that are being done, right? Because it doesn't make sense to sit or stay in a state of dysfunction, So I'll give you another one. And I know that these have played out in my life. So if they've played out in yours, then, more than welcome to share or put it in the chat. I would love to hear different people's experiences and not just my own, right? So one of the things is called formation of negative associations. So traumatic experiences can create negative associations with certain types of people or situations. For example, A child who experienced abuse from a father may associate men with danger and fear. So I'm guessing vice versa, right? A child that may have experienced abuse from a woman may associate danger, fear, distrust, anxiety, right? I'm just trying to think of all of the things, those ingrained beliefs can affect how they interpret and experience relationships later on in life. So because I didn't understand it as a child, and I may have had some abusive relationships with parents and things of that nature, how much of that affected me in terms of how I related to my female companions, my relationships with other women, because my mother may have neglected me or done some things or abused me or, whatever it is. And how did I respond to those things? How did I maneuver? How did I handle those? And then how do I now handle them, right? So let's just try to see if we can find some examples of maybe things that could be done to help with that. So one of the things I saw was basically, it's called trauma-informed therapy. So, which is a core solution, is to shift the focus from what's wrong with me, or what's wrong with you, right, to what happened to you. This perspective acknowledges the impact of past experiences on present functioning. So instead of saying, what's wrong with you, is to say, what happened to you that you feel that way, right? There's nothing wrong with you. You're reacting to something that actually happened. It's not, like in my case, or use me, I'm not making it up when I say that I was traumatized as a child. That's not, and I apologize, but it's still very difficult sometimes to talk about these things, I'm still not all the way comfortable with, every part of sharing it, but I know that it's necessary, not only for myself, but in my decision to share and hopefully help other people. I have to express myself, right? I have to express my fears, my vulnerabilities, in order to find a healing space where it makes sense for me, right? I have to identify that. So knowing that I was abused as a child, understanding that now that I was abused as a child, it's like saying, okay, well, without having properly gotten therapy and looked into it and really, addressed those issues, I've always said, what's wrong with you, man? Why are you doing that? And I remember saying that to myself now, like, why'd you do that? Like, what'd you do that? Come on, that was stupid, man. What are you doing that for? And maybe it was more therapeutic for me to say to myself, what's happened that you feel like that's the correct response? Why do you feel like that was the correct response to that? Right? And as that's a better way of maybe addressing that and giving yourself the grace so that you don't feel like, you don't feel that pain. You don't feel like, you don't feel that, because, life is about relationships, male and female. And, just in general, life is about relationships. No man is an island, right? We all have to interact in some way or another. And without having the tools to interact in that way and have a healthy relationship, then you're destined for the responses that you receive. You're destined for the dysfunction that comes from the dysfunction. It's like the initial dysfunction breeds continual dysfunction. And I say to myself, do I want to live like that? Do I want anyone else that I know of that may have this or be going through this to live like that, if there's a way that we can, begin to start building up our resistance to reactions or reacting to things in ways that are not healthy. I know I don't. I really want to, I really want to find a way out of it, to be honest with you, because I want my relationships to be solid. And I know that they can be. I know that they should be. I know that healthy relationships make healthy people. They make for more joy and more peace in your life, when you're healthy and you have healthy relationships. They allow you to experience things in ways that bring more peace and joy and fulfillment. And I'm just talking about watching a movie, walking to the park. It could be any of those types of things. And in that, how many of those things do we miss out on because we don't have that peace? Like, think about it. Like, how many of the things do we miss out on because we don't have that peace? So, something else that I was reading, and this is another thing, I'm just reading it from you because these are things that I researched, and there's a couple of different therapeutic modalities that help in that, right? Internal family systems therapy. This approach helps individuals understand their internal parts and their roles in protecting the self, promoting self-compassion and integration. Promoting self-compassion. I almost think we have to give ourselves some level of compassion. We have to give ourselves some grace when we've gone through certain things. Now, I know it's going to be people who are going to say, man, I went through much more trauma than this person, and that's, you could be 100% right. And I'm not here to brag on how traumatized I was. And I hope you're not either. Like, to even think that that would be something that we would want to look at and say, I got more trauma than you did. That's like not even like a concern of mine, like to even feel like, so I'm saying that to say, like, I want you guys to more be empathetic to yourselves and then be empathetic to others, because we don't know how they experience their trauma. And I'm almost certain that most of us have, experienced some levels of trauma. I don't think there's anybody that's actually been in a Judy Cleaver type of home, or Leave It to, Beaver or whatever it is type of home. I don't think many people's actually grown up in that. I don't think that our parents were equipped with all of the knowledge and wisdom necessary to raise a human being with all of this intellect and intelligence and uniqueness in an ever-changing world. Because how you raised a child in the 1920s is different from how you raise them in the 1940s, and it's different how you raise them in the 1950s and how you raise them you get my point? So in that, come on now. You think about it, like, were they equipped? And so when we give them the grace, we got to give ourselves grace as well. It's like a grace party. You got to say your grace and just give everybody grace, and just now try to learn how to move on and figure out ways to improve, and work our way out of it. Like, what are some exercises that could be done, or what are some things that we could research? I would say research the limbic system therapy, which is, this focuses on repairing faulty alarm systems in the brain, allowing the emotional brain to return to its normal function of ensuring safety and connection. So, I'm at some point, if somebody asked if they wanted me to go further into it, I could, but I would say look up the limbic system therapy. If we want to change post-traumatic reactions, we have to access the emotional brain and do limbic system therapy, repairing faulty alarm systems. We got to take that time to understand what some of these things are. Relational approaches. Safe and attuned relationships. Creating safe, attuned relationships is essential for healing. This involves finding people who show genuine care, empathy, and curiosity about you, about your experiences, about your views around the world. Like, listen to how beautiful that sounds. Imagine finding somebody who genuinely cares, is truly empathetic, and curious about who you are and what you've gone through, and has enough compassion and grace to deal with it. How many of us would benefit from someone who could show that kind of care and concern to us? I know I could have, and I don't blame a lot of my relationships, right? And say, hey, you didn't do this for me, because I know they may not have been equipped. They may have had their own traumas that they were dealing with that they didn't even know that they were reacting to, right? So if I give myself grace, I got to give the other person grace. I got to give them grace as well. But I know what's needed now at this point, I know what's needed at this point, and I know how damaging this has been to my relationships, that I've been so aggressive. I've been so short-tempered, disconnected, unempathetic, not sensitive. And I'm just repeating some of the things that so many people have told me I was in relationships, right? Only up until my last marriage as well. I've only been married once, so that marriage. And it's ending probably because of some of my traumas, I would believe. I would be foolish to think that it's just because I've been a great person the whole time. In all honesty, I'm sure that some of the things that I've done have not helped and not healed that person's trauma, right? So in taking accountability, I have to take responsibility for the things that I know that I may have attributed to, which I believe, is going to be quite a lot. Because I know how deeply rooted my past experiences, my hurtful experiences are. I know how many days and nights I've thought about them. And when I was young, I would cry from them and trying to understand why. And now that I'm older and never having truly dealt with it, with any of the symptoms that I'm mentioning to you guys, did I even share that? Did I share that trauma with someone else? Did I expose someone else to that unwillingly, and them not even, giving me permission to do it? I just pushed them into it because of my forcefulness, because of my dominance, developing awareness of one's internal sensations and emotions is an important step. Being self-aware in the moment. Like, it's cool to be self-aware a day later, but you don't already curse the person out. You don't already drag them through the mud. You don't already said all these hurtful things. So sorry is cool, but I mean, what is that sorry really, how's that sorry really helping? Honestly, I'm just being honest, how is that sorry really helping at that point? I don't know that it is. As much, a person may take the sorry and may make them feel a little bit better, but really and truly, like, how much is that sorry helping? I mean, it's something to think about, it's real enough to think about it. It's really enough to think about it. So I would say, these are really like things, and I'm gonna try my best to let y'all into, what I'm going through, because I am going through something which I think may actually help others as I go through a divorce. This may help others understand how to either, prepare themselves or prevent themselves. And I like the word prevent better. Prevent themselves from having to go through that because you haven't done the work. Because you haven't done the work, And, hopefully as I go through this with you guys, I'll be able to express more. Like I said, it's still difficult for me. So please bear with me. But I really do want to share because I would like to get feedback. I would like to hear how other people may be experiencing these things. And then, you wonder like, well, what is it? What is it that you may have done that causes you to get in a relationship and be in a bad relationship or be, in a relationship and then it get destroyed and you wonder, why, what happened? What did I do? I was a good person. And you might just have been a good person, right? In your own right. But it doesn't discount the fact that there may have been some things that you did that you may not have been cognizant of, but that affected the other person. And you got to acknowledge that. This is something I was reading saying disassociation. So when a person feels that a threatening situation is inescapable, disassociation can be a coping mechanism. So this can lead to emotional detachment, difficulty engaging in conversations, and an inability to respond to a partner's needs. I mean, does that sound familiar to anyone? Threatening situations that you felt was inescapable. So your mother or your father or your family member has you in a situation that you just felt was inescapable. I can't get away from this beating. I can't get away from this. I can't get away from them calling me names all the time and making me feel like shit. I can't get away from it. So you begin to have a disassociation as a coping mechanism, which can lead to emotional detachment. So now you're emotionally detached from this person that is complaining to you, who's your partner now, your wife, your relationship partner, right? You're emotionally detached from them because this is the only way you know how to deal with it, something that you can't escape. So you can't escape something. You live with this person, this is your wife, your husband, whatever, and you live with this person. You can't escape it. So what do? You detach. You become unemotional. You become emotionally detached. You have difficulty engaging in a conversation because you really don't even want to deal with the conversation. You're like, oh man, I don't want to hear that. I mean, you see what I mean? So now you have that. Think about it. And then you have an inability to respond to your partner's needs because they're talking to you. But you've already kind of had to block them out, right? You had to give them the block because you detach. You are disassociation with certain kinds of environments or certain kinds of feelings. You disassociate. Emotional contagion. Humans are emotionally contagious. If one partner's internal state is characterized by chaos and unpredictability, this will cause stress and tension within the relationship. So, have you been in a state of chaos and unpredictability? I know I have at times, And I'm not painting myself all bad. I just want you to understand. I'm not painting myself all bad at all. I've been a great person. I know I have a great heart. I know I do my best to be honorable, move with integrity. I try to stand on my principles and morals to the best of my ability and hope that I project that out and show that to not only the person I would be in a relationship with, but to, friends and family as well. But do I fall short? I'm almost certain of it when I understand that the traumas that I've been going through, I'm almost certain that I couldn't have been 100% there and healthy and compliant and dealing with everyone, it would have been impossible based on the facts of what I've experienced, and I please, nobody please think that I'm using this as an excuse for my negative behavior, because I'm not. I accept and take all responsibility and accountability for my negative behavior. I wouldn't blame that on anyone, right? I wouldn't blame that on anything. I think I'm smart enough, conscious enough to know that there were just some things that I did because I just, and I got to accept it. I did it because I wanted to, or because I didn't have the capacity to understand it, but I accepted I did it. You know, I would never try to blame that on someone else. I just think that's whack. You know, part of our power is in accepting responsibility for the things that we've done, because then it gives us control back. Because if we've done it, then we can undo it. If we write it off to something that we can't control, and then we lose all power and we say something else has that power over us. And then that thing becomes more powerful than us and becomes our master. You think about that. It becomes your master. The thing that can control you is actually your master. So if any vice controls you, that vice is your master. If any emotion controls you, that emotion is your master. And I would think that we would never want anything outside of ourselves and the side of our higher selves to control us. Because if our lower selves control us, we're in trouble. We're in trouble that way as well. So we want our higher self to control us, or to have control, right? So just, these are some of the things that I want to just share, as I go through this emotions and have I go through these different feelings and modalities. I wanted to really just kind of share that, because as I process them, I'm hoping that others can tap into that, see it, feel it, hear it, and respond to it. And like I said, send me a message, send me something, text me, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like, I would love for you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you find value, please share it with another person who you think may be able to connect or, relate to some of the things that's happening, There's no need for us to have failed relationships if there's a way to fix it, right? Losing someone you love in a relationship is hard. It's hard. And if it could be avoided, I would say, avoid it. There's no need for you to, the time you spend with somebody is valuable. It's the most precious thing that you can never get back is your time. And you spent it with that person in such an intimate way. To lose it because you guys haven't taken the time to understand why the connection is being severed, or why there's difficulty in communicating, doesn't really, it is better use of your time and energy in than just walking away because of all the time vested, energy vested, love vested. It's worth it. So again, family, I thank you for tapping in, listening. I hope that you found some value in this. Give yourself grace, and like I said, if there's got any value, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. Please share with your friends and ask your friends to please subscribe, because the more people that subscribe, the more this message gets out to other people. And that's really what I want. I want other people to kind of get the message so that they could tap in and maybe look for how do we heal? How do we heal? Like, there's better ways, right? There's better ways. So again, I thank you, appreciate you, love, power, peace.